How do they find angels, Troy?
Yeah, so the best thing you can do is do your research. So you know what companies are in markets that are very similar to yours. It's pretty easy to figure out who's invested in them. A lot of it's public, right? You can go look it up on Crunchbase many times, Mattermark. If you haven't done that, you can just talk, but just by talking, companies who are here in Chicago know who the angels are who invested in them. And generally what happens is if someone is invested in a particular type of company and done well, they feel like they know that industry, whether they do or not, whether it was luck or not, and feel like, wow, that was good. Let's do that again. And they'll be much more apt to do that again. And if you do your research on that person and you come in and you say, hey, Kevin, I know that you invested in Spot Hero and you like this, this kind of a market. We have something that's similar but a little different, not competitive. Here are the reasons that I think it's really attractive and it mirrors what you did in Spot Hero. He's much more apt to listen. I'm complimenting him. I'm telling him how smart he was, for starters. I've done my research, right? I know a little bit about the market. I'm drawing analogies, and he's much more likely to listen and to.
Are you calling me cold, or are you introed to me? I'm thinking real tactically.
Oh, so you're okay.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is get a warm introduction, right? So by far, the best thing you can do is get a warm introduction. So if I want to get to Kevin, I'm going to leverage LinkedIn and I'm going to leverage some other tools, Conspire, whatever else, and figure out who I know who knows Kevin who can make that introduction. And the way that I have that introduction made is I would write that email explaining in my words why I think that my business is analogous to other businesses he's invested in and want to have that meeting and that conversation, and ask the person who's the intermediary to forward it on, right? No double blinds, all that. I do double blind, no jumping people in. So forward it to Kevin. Kevin, do you want to meet this guy, Troy, who has a similar business? And then he gets to hear in my words why I think it's a good fit. You definitely do warm introductions. It's hard enough to get him to answer my emails, let alone blind emails.
To be even more extreme, I don't think we've done a deal in 20 years, maybe one, that didn't come in through one of our trusted advisors. And usually, which says a lot, right? We've done 140 deals, so. But usually the best ones come in from our former CEOs. Yep. Because what happens is we know that new guys coming up, new folks coming up will look to the successful entrepreneurs as mentors. Those CEOs know a good fellow entrepreneur because they've been successful, and so it's an incredible screen for us. So the best thing you can do is, first of all, go to IVCA's list or wherever to see all of the angel groups. Look at all of their portfolios, the companies, see which ones have done investments in the sector you're in. So if they've never done an education play, and you're an education play, it's going to be a long, long sell. People love, pattern recognition. Do the homework and then figure out if you know or can get to the CEOs at the end of the day. And I'd also say, by the way, the folks you have on this panel are probably the most awesome early stage guys in Chicago. Like, you want them, they'll roll up their sleeves, they'll help you. So I'd start with them and go from there.
Rishi, you want to add on to that with either your entrepreneur hat on or your investor hat on?
So this is all great advice and spot on. Say you don't have great connectivity into the Chicago ecosystem. I would say it's generally very open in my experience relative to other ecosystems, but start with entrepreneurs, as Matt said, right? And have a degree of clarity about where you are in the round you want to raise. So if you haven't raised any money at all and you want to raise a seed round, look at who has raised seed money and who has a set of investors that might be interested in what you're doing. And if you have to go cold, right, which is best not to, go cold into that CEO. Go cold into a seed entrepreneur who's just raised a seed round, right? In my experience, they'll want to help others that are a year or 6 months behind them. If you've raised seed, right, then you want to go talk to a Mark Lawrence at Spot Hero. You want to go talk to someone like that and said, boy, what surprised you about this process? How did you do that? You want to learn. And you want to really learn a year ahead or 6 months ahead, which I know is tough because some of you want to go now. But if you can really learn a year or 9 months ahead and get introductions and spend time with investors, prior to needing to, start a process right away with them, that's really helpful because it gets you a chance to build a bit of a track record. So you can tell them what you're going to do, and then you can demonstrate to them that you have some ownership over those goals and you hit it. or if you don't hit it, that you take ownership of that and, fix whatever you need to fix. And that's incredibly helpful because you also get to really test the relationship with the investor as well. So I think you start with the entrepreneur, really learn from them, ask them how they did it, but have clarity about this, because if you go and talk to somebody who's raised a B round and you're trying to raise a seed round, it's just not going to be the right fit, right? So you really have to have clarity about who has done in the last 6 months what you're trying to do in the next 6 to 12 months. And I think that's a really good way to go about it.
Awesome. Bailey, how do you develop relationships probably for a while before you actually
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say too, and this is kind of getting away from the question, is think about your options. It's not all about raising equity. You should have a relationship with a local banker that can say, you're at stage X and you need to be at stage Y for us to give you $500,000 to fund your loan. We're in this startup space where everyone always talks about fundraise, but I see so many businesses that actually just need a line of credit from your local community bank. So that's something to think about too, is get ahead of it and build a relationship with VCs that you think you're going to raise from 9, 12, 24 months from now, but also weigh your options and see if there are other ways to gain capital ahead of having those tough VC valuation conversations.